sometimes it's it can be time consuming, right? You share the story about this Airbnb co-founder saying that they actually launched just 3 times, and the name wasn't Airbnb at first. It was a bread and breakfast, right? So it's kind of like pretty long, and it takes time for them to really tweak their startup idea and then make it more and then sharpen it towards the end until to what it is today. So it wasn't very clear at the first time that when they started the idea, who are their target customer and what's the market segment that they are targeting is also not very clear to them. And they end up, spending 1 or 2 years just to strengthen their pitch, right, in front of investor. And then most of the investors say no to them, right, at first. And it's kind of remarkable that they have made it to a multi-billion unicorns today, right, based in California. So that's basically a story about Airbnb, how they started. And I'm just going to post this video on Google Classroom so that you can just spend your time, probably just the first 15 to 20 minutes of the video, not the entire hour, to listen to the stories, right? For those of you who have missed that just now. Okay, so we will start this class today, and as usual, we wouldn't need 2 hours, right? So I'm trying to compress it into maybe 1 hour and 15 minutes or 1 hour and a half, depending on how well we progress. And let's see, if we can do some exercises together, okay? And the other thing is that, okay, I would just share my entire screen because there's nothing so confidential on my desktop. I think it's easier for me just to share the entire screen without having to sort of like switching in between screens while I change my PowerPoint to my desktop and so on. So you're going to see my entire desktop, yeah? All right, so here we go. I think first of all, thanks to all of you who have submitted your first teamwork and even the second teamwork, right? The first teamwork is basically to register your startup. And I believe all teams have done that. Do not worry if you want to change your team members or on the course of throughout this course, if you want to really like, swap the team or you want to form a new team, that's still fine, right? So you still can do that, towards week 6 or week 7. Not too late, but we have teams that have done, changing teams in the past. So do not worry about that yet, right? So you're always flexible to form your team later on, right? I think when you come into having a more solid idea and what you want to do next. All right. The other thing is that I've seen your sort of like the startup canvas, right? So the technology push and the market pull worksheet, and many of teams actually did it very, very well, surprisingly. And I just want to commend to all of you who have spent tremendous effort in filling out the worksheet, right? I never expected that you did so well. Seriously, I think you did well better than many of us when I was at MIT, right? So I remember my first day doing this sort of like market segmentation. I don't know what to do. So it's so embarrassing that I don't know what to do and what kind of market segmentation that we're talking about. And I mean at MIT that the lecturer didn't really explain in details like what do you precisely need to do in terms of doing market segmentation and also the primary market research, right? So they just asked me, just ask us to go out and to talk to people, right? So that's what we do at MIT. It's like kind of blur, but that's #1 university in the world, but and that happens. Now coming back to this slide, you can see that today we're going to focus on step number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5, right? So that basically comprises all the steps in who is your customer. And this is the first team in your DE24 steps, right? So we're going to cover all those blue boxes in this particular DE24 steps diagram, and use this as your navigation chart, right? So this is more like a GPS for you. And this is basically in sequential format, but sometimes in DE24, you can be at, let's say, step number 13, right? So you're trying to map the customer acquisition process, right? And then you may also jump back to your step number 3. So you kind of like revisit your end user profile while you're on step number 13. So it's kind of not sequential, I would say that, but the chart, the drawing is like more like it's more like a ladder, right? A snake ladder game. But it's kind of like you can jump from one step and then go back to the previous step, to go back to the previous team and then come back to the step that you stopped at, right? So it's kind of like you can really jump here and there. But I think in this chart itself is very illustrated in the sequential format, right? Which is not the case always, right? But now I think we move into the Beachhead market without further ado. Let's look at the Beachhead market. It's kind of very simple. You have done the market segmentation. You probably have 3 to 4 top market segments that you want to focus on. And the only reason why you need to select just one Beachhead market is because you currently do not have a lot of resources, right, to focus on all 3 or 4 markets. And therefore, it's important that you select one beachhead market for you to attack, right? It's kind of like running a military, right? So the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy, you probably have different priorities, different resources, but you have to really focus all your resources into one simple or one single market segment where you can really channel all your resources and make sure that you conquer that particular beachhead market before you expand into other segments, right? So it's very important because as a startup, you probably haven't raised funds yet. You probably have an idea, or you probably have a prototype. You probably have a very simple technology that you want to sell, or perhaps there could be the market pool effect, right? You probably have customer, but you do not know what to sell, right? I think the product itself, the service itself is kind of like not very clear, right, upfront. So you want to select a pilot market for you to really test out your business process, your pilot, whether you're addressing the real customer needs and so on. So you actually do this step first. In step 2, you select one beachhead market from your market segmentation list, right? So you have 3 market segments that you want to target. You just choose one. So in this process itself, we're going to teach you how to really select or identify the beachhead market that you want, right? I will tell you some stories later on, right? So why is it called a beachhead market? When I think when the Allied troops landed in Normandy in France during the World War II, so they focused the beachhead to fight the Germans, basically in a place called Normandy, right? So it's kind of like they fly in millions of troops from the air, from the sea. They landed all these parachute. They actually deployed these paratroopers all throughout the Normandy in France, just to conquer that beachhead market. So that this is more like a supply base for you to really venture into other countryside, right? So it's kind of very important just to conquer that small market segment. It shouldn't be too big, right? It should be something very small that you can conquer within a certain time period. It doesn't have to take too long, but your beachhead market has to be conquerable so that you can spend most of the resources on. So for example, if you live in a very small geographic region, right? Let's say in the village or trying to sell products that cater for some of the customer in that region. And for example, the beachhead market for, let's say, 99 speed mark, right? Everybody knows the 99 speed mark, right? So their slogan is lebih dekat, lebih murah, right? It's cheaper and nearer to where you live. You don't have to really go to Tesco or even the Aeon because it's quite far, and then you have to look for parkings, and it's quite huge, and spend a lot of time just to walk up the escalator and so on. So the 99 speed mark beachhead market is pretty straightforward, right? It's within the neighborhood, right? 99 speed mark is never focusing on a big city, right? So it's kind of like you can see 99 speed mark in every corner of the city, right? It's kind of like you have all these 99 speed marks all around the corner in the city, so that people will not have to travel so far just to a centralized location, just like Aeon Big or Aeon or Tesco, or now they call it Lotus. You just don't have to do that because it's kind of like very near to you, and the price is very affordable, right? And this is very addressing the needs of the local people, right, living all around within the neighborhood itself. So that's the beachhead market for 99 Speed Mart. So again, the beachhead market is really for you to test the market, right? You're just testing the water, right? So called. So testing whether your product works, whether customers are buying at this price or whatever you want to find out in terms of your hypothesis. When you're doing your primary market research, you probably have some doubts that you came up with. And the beachhead market is really allowing you to do some testing, right? A/B testing. You want to do further primary market research, you can use your beachhead market to do that. Next slide. So again, why only one market? As I mentioned before, don't chase after two rabbits at the same time, right? Because you're going to basically spread your resources very thin if you are chasing multiple rabbits at the same time, and you end up with none. Okay, so think about the beachhead market for Grab. You see, so what was the beachhead market for Grab? Anyone here know? Grab was once known as My Taxi, yeah. So to let all of you know, I think Grab started in 2011, if you can remember. It was back in 2011. So two Malaysians who went to Harvard Business School actually won the competition, and of course, the founders Anthony and Hui Lin, right? And they both won the Harvard Business School competition. They get $100,000, competition prize, and they launched this company called My Taxi. But it wasn't called Grab at first. And back in 2011, that the taxis in Malaysia there are a lot of taxis in Malaysia, in fact, but the service is just not that great. It's kind of like you have to really call in to book a taxi, and you do not know who is coming. And also, Grab actually steals some ideas from Uber to really create an app. You can see that that was the first app on the rightmost corner of the screen here. So it was called My Taxi, and the app wasn't very so sexy, right? By the way, it's kind of like they allows you to book taxis from the app, right? And that was their beachhead market. So Grab wasn't the Grab car from the start. So you don't have the private drivers who drive a family car and then to pick you up from your house and then to send you to your destination, right? So that wasn't the first beachhead market for Grab. In fact, Grab or My Taxi started with working with taxi drivers, right? So these are the existing pool of drivers that I have. These are taxi drivers, right? And at the time, taxi drivers do not have an app. You always have to call into the call center to book a taxi, or either you have to probably know the taxi driver by telephone number, right? So you have to make a booking, and it's very tedious. And that's why Grab chosen to work with the taxi companies and then to sign them up on the Grab app, so that it wasn't Grab app, it was My Taxi app. Sorry about that. So and then you get, once you book the app, once you book a taxi on the app itself, you get an SMS, right? So it's kind of like, okay, that was the first beachhead market for My Taxi. Okay, now, so there was I think at that time, Grab was making money through the booking fee. So it wasn't taking a cut from all this taxi fare, because there wasn't any payment system, like what we have today. We have mobile payment, we use credit cards and debit cards and so on. But at the time, you can just book the taxi ride on the app, and then basically My Taxi actually charge you RM1, right, for the booking fee. That's all, right? That's what they earn. For every booking, they charge you RM1, right? That was the initial business model for Grab. Then we move to another sample here, right? So this is Uber. So many of you know Uber, which is a company that offer private chauffeur services. You have a private drivers, they are driving not taxi, they are driving a private car to come to your house to pick you up and then to send you to your destination. So if you look at Grab and Uber, the beachhead market for Grab and Uber is totally different, right? So Grab chosen to work with these sort of like taxi companies, but actually Uber, they actually focus on private drivers, right? So it's kind of like you can see the difference between these two companies, right? So yeah, so I think that was the two examples. Now, I want to talk about a little bit about my own company, because I use D24 Step to start up my company as well after attending this MIT graduate program. So I started a company whereby people who have your extra mobile data that you couldn't use up at the end of the month, you couldn't get a rebate from Maxis, Telkom, and DG or U Mobile, you can actually sell it through our platform, right? So it's kind of like a very simple app called Simplify, for you to resell your unused mobile data, right? And so that other people can connect to you. So there is basically a seller and buyer here. So the seller, Michelle, is my persona. So Michelle actually sells her unused mobile data or extra mobile data to people around her nearby, right? Because over this personal hotspot. So you can actually turn on your personal hotspot, let people connect to you. And Michelle actually earns from the money that you pay, by connecting to her personal hotspot. So it's kind of, nobody has done it before, and we never know whether it works or not. But this is just a little idea that we have during my time at MIT, and we started this off as a company with my co-founders, and eventually we actually evolved the products over time. So now it becomes a full-fledged product, not just for mobile phone, but also for your fixed Wi-Fi at home. So you have Unify at home, you have Time.com at home, you have Maxis Fiber at home. You can also use our sort of like service just to resell your Wi-Fi, unlimited Wi-Fi to other people in need, right? So that was the little idea for us. And at that time, we have this idea, but we do not know how to sell. We just know that we have this piece of technology. It's kind of like technology push. We have a technology that allows people to connect to the host without having to key in password. And then basically, the host will know how much data that you have used and then charge you for the amount that you have used, right? Just like electricity bill, right? So it's kind of every month, if you use up, let's say 100 meg of data, you just pay 10 cents, right? So it's kind of very fair, instead of like paying $90 or 59 ringgit per month to your telco, but you just pay per use. So we think that it's kind of like a very affordable service for people, especially for B40 segment. They don't have to subscribe to a fixed mobile data plan, which costs them maybe 58 ringgit per month or 89 ringgit per month for Unify. They can just pay per use, right? Pay per use, and they use up. Let's say I use up 1 gig, it costs you only 1 ringgit. And if I use up 50 gig per month, I only pay 50 ringgit. So I don't have to pay 89 ringgit per month. So that's basically the initial idea that we have. So now we look into the Beachhead market, right? So it's kind of like very unclear to us that we didn't really talk a lot about our Beachhead market segment. So in fact, let me just move to the next screen. So in fact, we draw a chart, right? It's kind of like a very simple chart for us to identify the Beachhead market. Especially a technology where how can we apply this internet sharing technology into the market itself. So we divided into 4 segments, just like you identify 3 segments, but we have 4 segments here. The first segment is really to ask the Grab drivers or the Uber drivers to resell their mobile data to their passengers, right? So while you're driving, you're not using your phone because you're driving, you cannot use your phone, and your phone will be idling, right? Your phone will be idling, or either you're a GPS. But for the drivers, you can actually turn on your hotspot in the car so that the passengers behind can connect to your personal hotspot as and when they are in the car. So it's kind of like not just grabbing the internet, not just grabbing a ride, but you're grabbing the internet throughout the ride. So especially this is very important for tourists. Yeah, tourists don't buy a SIM cards, and they typically have to rely on public Wi-Fi, which is not decent. And if you can really offer them, 5 minutes of internet within the car itself, I think they'll be very grateful to you. So that was the initial thought, that the first segment is really to target the ride-sharing drivers, right? Which is the Grab car drivers, which is the Uber drivers, and we are doing this worldwide. Okay, and with the same technology itself, we look at the second market segment, right? Which is the tour guides. Pre-COVID-19, we still have tour guides bringing, travelers around, like in Malacca, especially Chinese tourists come to Malaysia. And it was kind of like very alarming to us to find out that every year, in 2019, right? I think every year until 2019, there are about 2 to 3 million Chinese tourists coming into Malaysia every single year. right? And it's actually on the rise year on year. So many of these tourists do not purchase SIM cards. I think 60% of the tourists from our own primary market research, they do not actually buy a SIM card, right, while they're arriving in Malaysia. So because first thing, the language barrier, as and when they landed at KLIA, most of the telco shop, right, at KLIA or KLIA2 do not have this Chinese signboard, right? There's no Chinese words or no Chinese signboard, and nobody understands. Is it a telco shop? I don't know, right? And probably most of the tourists will miss that, although it's right in front of the arrival hall, but many tourists would most often they are on the rush, right? Because they want to really get off from the arrival hall as quickly as possible. They miss the chance to actually buy a SIM card. And many of them will have to rely on public internet, right, which is not decent, as I said. So they can actually connect to tour guides. Tour guides spend most of the time with tourists, except going to toilets or in the hotels. But in the hotels, you don't need internet because most of the hotel provide use free internet in the hotel itself. So it's actually while you are traveling around the city, therefore you need an internet. And tour guides basically provides the capability, instead of guiding you throughout the tour, he or she can also offer a few minutes of free internet for you to connect, right? And you just pay him on a pay-per-use basis. And another thing that we think about is especially the convenience store, right? Tourists go to convenience store. Tourists is especially our Beachhead market segment, and we're trying to map this out into the journey map. And if you look at 7-Eleven, right, or even some of the convenience store that which is available in the city, like Family Mart or even 99 Smith Mart, right? So working with convenience store is especially another Beachhead market that we target. It's kind of like in the convenience store you can put a Wi-Fi, and most of the convenience store today have Wi-Fi, just that they don't open up for public usage. You see, because they need it for their terminal, they need it for the cash terminal system, right? So and 7-Eleven is something that we should really look to partner with, and then to offer not just convenience of buying food and drinks in the convenience store, but you're giving convenience to the tourists to actually get internet access, right, in the convenience store itself. Right? It's kind of like, wow. Well, I think that made a lot of sense to really identify a convenience store as our Beachhead market. Okay, and the last one is basically the homestay host, like Airbnb, Agoda Home. So this is different from hotels, yeah, because hotels really provide you internet service, but homestay hosts, I would say, is optional, right? Some homestay do not provide you internet. They expect you to bring your own internet. You have your mobile data, then you should really use your own internet. Like I was traveling to the Philippines, right? Most of the homestay in the Philippines do not have internet bundled as part of their homestay package. You got to pay extra. Even staying at the Tune Hotel, right? I think this was owned by Asia. If you want to use internet at Tune Hotel, you got to top up additional 10 ringgit. Right? It's kind of like, oh, I pay for the hotel. Why couldn't I use the internet? No. If you want to use the internet at Tune Hotel, you got to pay extra, right? So it's kind of like things that people would not accept. But I think for homestay, you can top up maybe a few ringgit, right, just to get 3 to 5 gig of data. And I think we can also work with a homestay host to provide internet in the house. So that was our initial thoughts about, from these 4 segment here, we want to select the right Beachhead market for us. So eventually, we actually targeted the ride-sharing drivers because it's easier for us to tackle or to acquire the ride-sharing drivers as our hosts, because they are so well versed in sharing economy. So we don't have to really tell them or even to train them about sharing economy, because they know how it works and they know about this gig economy. They can just earn side income, passive income, and then it's so easy for them to set up. Right? It's kind of like just link it to your bank account, and then you get this money when actually people connect to use your personal hotspot in the car. Okay, so that was my own basically homework. Just like you, I did my homework back in the days at MIT, and we came up with this very simple chart here, and it's still applicable today. Yeah. And next thing, well, that's basically how it works. The Grab drivers or the Uber drivers sharing to passengers behind you, and most of these passengers are taking a ride maybe from the airport. You get to spend 40 minutes ride in the car, And imagine that you don't have internet, with you when you arrive in the new country, right? So it's kind of like, wow, what do I do, in the 40 minutes ride in the car? So that was the initial idea. And I can play a little video about how this works. It's kind of very simple to use, right? So you just need to click connect, and you don't even have to key in any password, and you just connect to your driver's hotspot in the car, right? Because and the hotspot is kind of like, well, it's in the car itself, so there's no way that it can go. Definitely the service is good because as you're driving along the highway, there is especially mobile network, and obviously the driver is not going to use his or her internet while he's driving. So obviously you will be the passengers, and the only users will be using his personal hotspot in the car. It's kind of like, well, it's a perfect match between the driver and the passengers. Okay. That was our Beachhead market. I think it's kind of simple, right? So just select one Beachhead market out of the 4 segments that you have, and then after that, we'll think what to do about that, right? I will skip this because this is all in the textbook, and I think the 3 conditions to define the Beachhead market is very simple. You got to sell the same product, right? So it has the same sales process. The way that you sell the product and the way that you acquire the customer is going to be the same. You don't sell a product to, let's say, for example, you sell this product to Airbnb hosts, and also selling this simplified to Grab drivers is very different, right? It's very different because Airbnb hosts probably do not use, they don't put a smartphone in the house. They actually put the Wi-Fi router in the house. So the product is going to be very different, right? So the sales process is going to be very different. And the other thing, last thing is, basically you don't have a lot of resources, but you purely depend on word of mouth, right? It's kind of like the Grab drivers can actually recommend the passengers behind to download the app, so that he or she can connect to the Grab driver's personal hotspot in the car. It's kind of like, oh, you can just download this app, just look at the brochure behind the car. I have this brochure for you, and you scan this QR code and you can download the app. And it really depends on word of mouth to promote your products and services, right? So this is the nature of a Beachhead market, right? It's kind of like the first market that you want to take but you don't have a lot of resources to do marketing. You just have to really keep it very simple. It kind of is a minimum viable product with the same sales process, and then you purely based on word of mouth to promote your app. Okay. Now we move into another segment called end user profile. So this is the step number 3 in your DE 24 step. Yeah. So we have 24 steps. This is step number 3. And building the end user profile comes after you identify the Beachhead market. You cannot build your end user profile without knowing where to attack, right? You get to find out, okay, I'm going to attack, let's say Airbnb, right? So I want to recruit all the Airbnb homestay hosts to be my customer. So you can build your end user profile based on that. So Airbnb host will be your end user profile. So to do this step is pretty simple. You just have to work out a simple characteristics about your target segment profile. So sometimes we call it end user profile, sometimes we call it a target customer profile. So it's up to you. I think the terms can be used interchangeably. So, but anyway, this represents your buyer or the user in your Beachhead market segment, right? So do not do the end user profile for any other market, but select the Beachhead market first in step 2. And in step 3, right, just build a simple end user profile, the target customer profile for your Beachhead market segment. That's all, right? So how to do this, right? So it's kind of like, well, simple, because you just have to understand their demographic. You have done primary market research, right? So you probably have collected a lot of user profile, where they are from, whether they are living in tier 1 city or tier 2 city like Ipoh. Ipoh is considered maybe tier 2 city, I would say. Right? Tier 1 city is like KL, Penang, maybe JB, those cities with more than 1 million population. We call them more like a tier 1 city, right? So tier 2 city is like maybe like Ipoh, we're probably about slightly less than 1 million population in Ipoh, and about 700 to 900. I would say that this probably tier 2 city. So you probably target the users in tier 2 city rather than tier 1 city, right? So it's kind of like the demographic that you want to put into your user profile. So the demographic could be more like their profession as well, right? It can be their gender. You know, some products are gender biased. For example, you are selling a beauty products, right? So obviously, you don't target men as your main target segment. So men would not be the right end user profile, right, for beauty products. Although there are some men that uses beauty products, but I doubt, you know, the bulk market of your products should be targeted to women, right? So women at a particular age group. So even within the women category, there could be a very focused target group, right? The demographic in terms of the age. Maybe I want to target young women from age 20 to maybe the age of 50, right? So that's basically the right demographic for your beauty products, right? So this kind of some user profile around that. The age, the gender, where do they live, and in terms of the characteristic is, you know, how frequent do they use your product, right? What's the product behavior, right? So how frequent do they buy your products? Is it once a week? You know, just like buying the fresh milk from a 99 Meat Mart. Is it so frequent? Or it's kind of like they're going to buy it once a year, right? So for mooncake, for example, right? So we are approaching the mooncake festival. So, you know, all these confectionery or the bakery shop is selling mooncake, and they know that this is like once a year. So the buying behavior is once a year. So the buying cycle is like once a year. So make sure that they catch the right type during this period of time. Probably starting from now towards the the month of September, just right before the mooncake festival, you can sell your mooncake to your customers. I can show you one sample about the end user profile, right? So how to build the end user profile is you can refer to your workbook, the red color book. It gives you a simple worksheet. All you need to do is just to fill out the worksheet, right? So it's kind of very simple. Their education background, maybe their ethnicity, their, you know, their status. You know, it could be their age group. It could be their income. It could be the places that they live. You know, whether they are living in urban, suburban, or very rural areas, right? So you can fill out this worksheet, right, to build your end user profile. So in the end, you're going to come out with something like that, right? So for example, this is a pretty straightforward, simple, precise end user profile or customer profile, right? The gender can be male and female. Maybe the age 17 to 40 years old. The region is in Moscow. Occupation are young professional students, you know, migrants and so on. So these are simple end user profile that you can put up, right? So it's kind of like, well, very simple for you to build your end user profile. You can really come out this end user profile. If you've done your primary market research deep enough, you have a lot of insight into your primary market research, who your customer is, then I wouldn't think you need more than 10 minutes just to come up with your end user profile. It's kind of like at a single brink, you can really come up with all these customer profile, right, of your own, right, for that beachhead market. So if you ask Simplify to come up with the end user profile for Grab drivers, right, I think it's very simple. It's Grab drivers. They'll be driving maybe 4 hours a day. They will be operating in the city, not in the village. Obviously, if in the village, not there isn't any Grab, you know, available in the village. So it's not going to be for rural areas. It's going to be urban and suburban. And then, so these are some of the user profile that we can put up for my company called Simplify, right? Well, this is something that I've talked about just now: demographics, their buying behavior, the psychographics profile, and then the proxy products. What other products do they use, right? Apart from you know, using your products, right? So it's kind of like for you to understand a bit more about their buying behavior, you know, the kind of choice that they want, and the kind of price that they were willing to pay. So this comes under the end user profile. Okay. After building the end user profile, go to a step called building a persona, right? So this is one of the most interesting steps, especially for designers. You know, I've worked with a lot of designers throughout my career. You know, some great designers that I've worked with, they always start with persona, right? Persona is kind of like based on your end user profile, you come up with sort of like the, how to say, you kind of illustrate the figure or the spokesperson, the ambassador, right? The ambassador for your product. Who will become the ambassador for your product, right? So, for example, if you are selling beauty products, right? You want to get a K-pop star to be your ambassador, and that ambassador actually fits into the persona of your product. So they are the right user, they are the right spokesperson for your products, and these are what we call a persona, right? So the person that fits into your user profile, right? In step 3. So again, I'm going to show you some examples here. So persona, example number 1. So like Kirby, he works as a facility manager for IBM in a data center in the US, and probably he's in his mid-career. He has a family with 2 kids. He is a migrant from Winchester, right, and now lives in especially this place called Medford, and then blah blah blah, all this persona, and then he has been working for 5 years, and of course the persona, right, first thing, which is different from your end user profile, because your end user profile is something very general, very general. In your persona, you map it to your end user profile, but you have to give your persona a name, right? A name like Shirley, like maybe a K-pop star, right? I'm I don't know what style do they have, but you can give the person a name, right? And you can come up with all these sort of like the characteristics of the person that represent the user for your product, because it seems more personal, right? Apart from just putting up a end user profile, right? And you can, if you can create a persona that uses your products, this is a bit more engaging and personal. So I want you to create a persona for your Beachhead market based on your end user profile. So that's basically step number 4. So another example is if you have a persona, if you are running a 2-sided market, right? You are selling things on Lazada, right? So you know Lazada is a 2-sided market. You have the buyers and also you have the sellers. The sellers and the buyers are both the customer for Lazada or Shopee, right? And you have to build 2 personas for your, which represent your buyer and also your sellers, right? So the next example, coming back to Simplify, how do we construct the personas for Simplify? You know that Simplify actually has the seller, you know, the Grab drivers, these are the sellers for Simplify because they offer internet in the car, right? These are the seller. And also Simplify has the buyers, right? So the buyers actually download Simplify app so that you use the app to connect to the seller's personal hotspot. So actually we have 2 end user profile here. So the driver and the passengers. And now we go into building the persona for Simplify, for example. Yeah. So we have a buyer and seller, as I said, and one is to buy data and one is to sell data. So the persona for the buyer, who is the tourist, we call her Megan, not Megan Fox. So this Megan, I don't know, Megan who, you know, you can just come up with a simple slide, right? Paste a picture of your persona. It's very important. Paste a picture of persona. Give he or she a name. After that, you describe the persona itself based on your end user profile, right? The behavior is Megan, of course, if you want to use Simplify, you have to have a smartphone, isn't it? Whether it's iPhone or Android phone, you have to have a smartphone, because if you don't have a smartphone, you cannot download Simplify app. You can't download Grab app as well, right? So you have to have a smartphone. You have a smartphone user, and you're on budget travel, because otherwise you could have purchased a SIM card, right? You know that SIM card is kind of expensive. And if you turn on your mobile data roaming, while you're roaming, you're doing global roaming, it's very expensive as well. So you tend to look for free Wi-Fi, or you tend to look for affordable Wi-Fi in the car, right? So it's kind of like very budget conscious. And you want to share everything that you captured, to your Instagram, to your TikTok, as and when you travel throughout your journey. So this kind of persona that you have to write down all this behavior for your persona, put a simple slide like this, and then this basically representing your persona. So we have some samples here posted on Google Classroom. You don't have to worry about the template. You can basically use the simple template that I posted up on Google Classroom to help you to build a persona. Okay, so this comes in all in one. And the persona is you are telling your business about the problems that they are facing, right? I mean, all of you have done design thinking in the past. You know what problem statement is. So you have to tie that problem statement with your persona. They feel frustrated. They are tight on budget. They couldn't get a decent Wi-Fi. They are without SIM cards, and they are taking a 40 minutes ride from the airport to downtown KL. So, in the 40 minutes ride, I don't have magazines. My phone is not working. There's no internet. I'm just sitting in the car, looking out at the car window. There's nothing to look up for. And if the driver can offer you, some like 40 minutes of internet, and you can pay per use, why not? That's really fantastic, right? You really reduce the FOMO effect, the fear of missing out. FOMO means the fear of missing out, and you really reduce that in terms of coming in as a tourist, right? So imagine that you are a tourist. You always want to probably tell your friends or tell your family, I'm safe, I've landed in Malaysia, and I'm taking a ride to the hotel. And it's kind of like, you want to get this messaging going, and you have to constantly look for Wi-Fi in the car, right? Even in the car, you can just connect to the driver's Wi-Fi, and this solves the problem. So this is kind of a persona you can build for the buyer side, right? Who is the traveler. Now, we are trying to build a persona for the drivers, right? So another persona, which is the seller. So Nasri here, he is a freelance software developer, but he actually worked as a part-time Grab drivers, right? So he's part-time Grab drivers, full-time as a freelance software developer, right? So he also uses a smartphone. He has a very high-end data package, unlimited data plans on his phone. He can just share to other people, right? Because he couldn't use up the unlimited data package in a month. He's paying like 150 ringgit to DG, Maxis, and Celcom every month. So he couldn't use up the mobile data. And while he's driving his Grab car, and he's offering internet in the car, right? For travelers. So for travelers can just piggyback on his personal hotspot in his car. So his goal is really to make his customer happy. He offered drinks in his car. He also offer internet service in his car. He also offer as a tour guide, as part of his part-time job, right? Because he's kind of like the persona of the person of this person called Nasri, and you can put up a very simple persona to describe his demographic, his profession, his age, where he's coming from. He's looking for more passive income, right? I think that's the goal. He can earn more from driving, apart from earning from Grab, but he can earn some money to pay his internet bills, right? Why not? So that's the persona for the seller, right? And that comes under simplify. So I'm just giving you this example here so that you can work out the persona for your respective Beachhead market. Okay, so that's another task for you for this week. I would say that you can really spend like 10 minutes just to finish this up, because it's very simple. You just need to paste a picture, give a name, describe the persona, and then just to perhaps put it into a very simple slide, right? So it's kind of like you wouldn't take more than 10-15 minutes just to do this as a team. And I would like to show you one more persona, which I've posted on Google Classroom. That's my persona built while I was attending this course at MIT. Yeah, so I was doing the assignments just like you, and my persona is kind of like not. I wouldn't say perfect, it wasn't perfect, right? But at that time, I was also building the persona just like you. So I've attached a sample persona here. Let me just open this screen. And that was the initial day for Simplify, right? So at that time, the idea haven't really evolved. We're just like testing water, testing our Beachhead market. And this was our persona, right? It's very simple. You can see that this was my original assignment, assignment 3, just like you, teamwork 3. And I have to do this, personally, right, individually, right? So we have the persona. This person is called Elizabeth. So Elizabeth is a 20-year-old undergraduate, socially active urbanite who has a smartphone, and then she has limited 1 gigabit mobile data plan. At the time, I think 1 gig plan, and most of the time she will be using a public internet, right? So on the campus, you use a internet on the campus itself, which is very slow, and then you hook up to internet in the cafe to stay connected, right? So a heavy internet user at home, she shares the home Wi-Fi with her brother. Most of us actually share home Wi-Fi with our family members, right? So you can actually put that in your persona as well. Like for Simplify, we understand this is the persona, and she stayed up very late just to watch some hottest dramas, and she has some course mates coming to her house to do group assignments, right, during weekends. And there was during, there was before the pandemic, right? So you can do these assignments together, or even work in teams and then meet each other as and when you need, right? So that constitute the persona for Simplify. Why do we have to have this internet sharing for people to pay per use, and they don't have to sign up for a postpaid plan? They don't have to reload on their prepaid cards. And that's the kind of persona that we have created for Simplify, right? During the early days. And this was done like back in 2014. I still remember. I think 2014 or 15, right? So I was doing this MIT 15.390X course, entrepreneurship, which is the thing that you have now. At the time, they don't call it discipline entrepreneurship. They call it entrepreneurship 101. So we don't even have a textbook like you, right? So you have the textbook now. You have the worksheet with you to guide you through the process. At that time, we just have to based on the slide given by the lecturer, we come up with the persona, right? So at that time was quite difficult compared to what you have today, right? So you have all the resources that you need to build your persona, right? So it is posted as part of the teamwork number 4. Identify your beachhead market, build your end user profile, and also to create a persona, right? So it's all given to you here. The worksheets are attached for your reference, and you can come up with these 3 in probably half an hour, right? So you can come up with these 3 in half an hour. So, okay, so that's basically the teamwork for this week. Now, I want to move into another topic, all right? Which I think is also important for this week to cover, because we missed the last week because of public holiday. And we are running a little bit behind schedule, but I'm trying to cover 2 weeks content, compress that into 1 week, and hopefully I can cover that within the next 15 minutes, right? So just bear with me for another 15 minutes. Now, after talking about persona, we move into the next thing, which is total addressable market, right? We call it TAM, T-A-M, TAM, right? So you have identified your beachhead market. You have your persona in place. You know who your target customer is. It's not all of them, but some of them. You have locked on your target. You can see that in the diagram here. You have found your sweet spot. That's the target that you want to attack. Now, this is the next important step. You want to estimate the market size. How big is my market? Of course, you don't want to target a market that has only one customer, right? No point targeting the market with only one customer. You want to target a market which gives you some recurring revenue for you to survive, right? Maybe, I want to target a market that has at least 1 million customers, so that at least everyone pays $1, to buy my product, I can earn $1 million, right? This is a very simple analogy about total addressable market, right? It's kind of like building the TAM, estimating the market size, right? So you don't want the market to be too small and you spend a lot of effort just to target one customer or 10 customers. You want to spend the right amount of effort to target the right amount of the target market size, right? And that's basically an exercise. In your marketing strategy course, they don't teach you the way how to estimate market size. I've read a lot of marketing textbook, and not many marketing textbooks really teach you a way how to really construct the total addressable market in a systematic manner. And I'm teaching you a systematic way to do this by giving you some examples here, right? So it's a very simple process. Now, going back to the TAM size, you are trying to convince, right? You're trying to convince yourself or your teammates or your co-founders about the potential of your products and the potential of your market, right? So this is the method for you to estimate. So I would say that the rule of thumb is one segment, one TAM, okay? If your market has, let's say, two segments, like simplify, right? So you have the buyer and then you have the seller, you have two personas, two end user profile, two segments. So you probably need to have two TAMs, right? Two TAMs, two total addressable market, because you're selling your products to not just the seller, but also the buyer. Same for Lazada. Lazada is selling, okay, Lazada is not selling, but they are actually putting up a platform for the sellers, right, to sell their products. So the sellers would be one segment for Lazada, and Lazada is also getting customer on their platform, right? So the buyers, right? So one segment would be would be the buyer. So Shopee and Lazada will have two total addressable market. One is to estimate the size of the seller, right? The seller could be 50,000 sellers on the platform because they are selling 50,000 products. Maybe, I think just an estimate. And the buyers could be more, right? So I have 3 million buyers on my platform, okay? And let me ask you another question. What would be the segment for TikTok? For example, yeah, TikTok. How many segments do they have for TikTok? Anyone want to try? How many segments are there for TikTok? Maybe some of you put it in the group chat. 2, okay. What are the 2 segments for TikTok? Can you name it? Amanda? Name one segment. Content creators, exactly, right? So thanks, content creators, the creators and viewers, right? Somebody will have to create a content, right? So that's first segment. And TikTok has another segment called viewers, right? So how many people have actually viewed your video, and how many actually have shared your video or even like your video? So 2 segments. You got to build 2 TAMs for TikTok, right? Just take it as one example here, right? So again coming back to this, to my startup called Simplify again. I just have to scroll back, right? So you know that we have a few segments here, and then we just have to select the Beachhead market, right? So we have the ride sharing drivers and the passenger, right? So now let us estimate. So if you look at the market size for ride share drivers, right? If you just go Googling, right? Just Google how many Uber, Grab, Lyft drivers are there in the world, right? And Google will tell you, in the world we have about 4 million ride share drivers in the whole world, because I want to estimate the total addressable market for Simplify in the whole world, right? In the whole world. So I want to get how many Grab drivers can be by sellers, right? So let's say if I combine Uber, Lyft, and Grab together, they have about 4 million drivers combined, right? So they have about 4 million drivers combined. Okay, now, in terms of the international tourists, because you know that another segment for Simplify is especially tourists, right? Tourists, right? So tourists travel around. So just look at the global travel metrics. You know, you can just Google it again. What would be the international tourist arrival throughout the world in the year of, let's say, 2019? Right? Obviously, 2020 is the last year, right? So same as 2021, right? So don't look at those numbers in 2020 and 21 because of COVID. So obviously there wasn't many tourists, but look at the numbers in 2019, right? So the international tourist arrival for the whole world is about 100 million, right? 4 million drivers, but 100 million international tourist arrival, right? So of course you can estimate the market size, the TAM for the entire world in this manner, right? Just do market sizing, right? So it's kind of, well, you put the figures to your market segment. So the first segment, which is the ride share drivers, you have 4 million ride share drivers. These are your market, and the buyers, who are the tourists, they are about 100 million international tourists, right? So don't count the domestic tourists, but international tourists, because the domestic tourists do not buy the data from you, right? Because they already have mobile data, they already have their SIM cards, so they don't have to buy from you. But we're targeting foreign tourists, right? So we have to focus on international tourists. So that's about 100 million. Now we move to the next slide, right? So this is not done yet. So I give you another example. Simplify also target Airbnb hosts. Okay, so this is how we calculate the total market size or total addressable market for Airbnb hosts. Yeah, coming back to this. Sorry. Okay, so this is the right side. Now, if you just look at the numbers for Airbnb hosts, guess how many Airbnb hosts are there in Malaysia? How many Airbnb hosts are there in Malaysia? Can somebody ask Google, please? Yeah, stop like this. Okay, so if you're not clear, you just like launch Google, right? So just go to Google. You can ask this question, right? How many Airbnb in Malaysia? 57,000, right? So there are about 57 Airbnb properties listed in Malaysia alone as of 2019, right? So this is something like it's given by it's a survey done by a property guru, right? So 57,000 Airbnb premise. Each premise has a host, right? So obviously you know that there are 57,000 Airbnb hosts in Malaysia, right? Now you use that number, you can just easily plug in the numbers here into your TAM template. So I have 57,000 homestay hosts in Malaysia. Just count Airbnb. And then you can estimate, right? Each Airbnb host sell 10 gig of data in a month, right? 10 gig of data in a month, right? I don't know why this is keep on auto play. All right, so each host sell 10 gig in a month. Okay, so I'm just going to put this. Okay, so each Airbnb host sell 10 gig in a month. So 57,000 times 10 gig, and then the price for 1 gig of data is actually 1 ringgit, right? $1 or 1 ringgit, right? For Simplify, right? 1 gig of data is 1 ringgit. Wow, it's kind of like very cheap, right? So very affordable. And if you calculate the monthly revenue, yeah, so for TAM, you always have to come up with the monthly revenue figure. 57,000 times 10 times 1, right? So you end up to have 570,000, right? 570,000 ringgit, right? In dollar terms, yeah. So in ringgit, in currency terms. So every month, your revenue, your estimated revenue, if you can get 57,000 homestay hosts to sell 10 gig a month, your monthly revenue, your maximum revenue will be 570,000 ringgit per month, right? Now, you actually times it with 12 months, right? Because you have to calculate the annual revenue, right? This is the total market size annually. So if you multiply 570,000 times 12 months in the year, you end up with 6.84 million revenue in the year. Okay, so this is your total revenue. And of course, if you came from finance background, you know that of course 6.84 million is my revenue, is my sales, right? And of course, part of the revenue I need to pay back to the homestay host, right? They cannot be selling for nothing, you see. So I will have to pay, let's say 80% back to my homestay host. And as a company, I take 20% commission. So my profit will be 1.37 million because 20% out of the 6.84 million, that's basically times 20%, which is my gross margin or the gross profit. The company, my company makes 1.37 million per year, right? So that's the market size of your company, okay, for your startup. Okay, now the company also sells to Grab drivers, right? This is just one segment, yeah. So the first one is this is for homestay hosts. Now we go back to the ride share driver. Same diagram, you can see that, but the numbers is a bit different here. The total market size for ride share drivers use the same methodology that we use for homestay hosts. Now, how many ride share drivers are there? Let's say in Southeast Asia, there could be about 1 million ride share drivers because we cannot be, launching Simplify for the whole world, but we can launch with Grab in Southeast Asia alone, right? So from our study in Southeast Asia, there's about 1 million ride sharing drivers, right? If you combine all the ride share drivers in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Singapore, in Thailand, and Philippines, in Vietnam, and so on. So that comes to about 1 million drivers. And every driver just share 3 gigabytes per month to the tourists. 3 gigabytes, what's 3 gigabytes? You have to do some estimate, yeah? Not just to plug a figure from the sky. Okay, 3 gigabytes, what would be the characteristics of like 3 gigabytes per month? So if you divide 3 gigabytes into 30 days, every single day, you only have to sell 100 meg of data. 100 meg of data, right? So imagine you can just do a quick, mobile data usage check on your mobile phone. I think any ordinary user would have used 100 meg of data if you stream one 10 minutes YouTube video. If you just watch one YouTube video, 10 minutes, you can consume already like 100 meg of data, right? So sometimes you keep your phone off for 2 hours. For example, you are attending the class, right? You turn your phone off for 2 hours. And then once you turn it on, you have a lot of messages like people sending you videos, people sending you pictures and so on. You download those pictures, at a glance, like a few messages. That is already 100 meg, okay? And I would say that 3 gig is a conservative number. 3 gig for the entire month is a very conservative number. Ask yourself, right? Ask yourself, if I'm giving you just 3 gig in the month, yeah, not a day, yeah, in a month, would it be enough for you to attend online classes and for your daily needs? The answer is no, right? Obviously no. Hey, even 30 gig is not enough for me. Not to say 3 gig. So obviously it's no. I think this number is very conservative. I think the numbers can be, I think it's missing 1 0 here, but this is a very conservative number, right? So 1 million drivers times 3 gig times $1, right? To make it simple. So you end up to have 3 million monthly revenue for the company times 12, because you want to calculate your annual revenue, your total market size for your annual revenue is 36 million. If you just take 20%, you're going to get 7.2 million ringgit per year. Okay, so this is the gross margin that you make. Okay, now let me ask you, for GrabFood and Foodpanda, how many percent are they taking? How many percent of the commission are they charging? 30%, right? So it's 30%. For Grab drivers, Grab is taking 25%, 20 to 25%, right? And all these companies are taking a cut in the revenue that they earn, right? So it's kind of like they pay $10 from the customer, they take $3 into their pocket, they return $7 back to the host, back to the seller, right? So same for Lazada and Shopee, right? So Lazada and Shopee actually charge for every transaction that goes through Shopee, Shopee actually takes about maybe 10% or 15% of the revenue. That's why sometimes you can see some items on Lazada and Shopee is slightly different, right? So the price is slightly different. And the worst thing is, as a buyer, I have to really pay for the shipping fee, right? So shipping fee sometimes is not included in the transaction price. So you see, you get to pay extra for the shipping fee, right? So that comes at the cost of the buyer, right? Not the seller. The seller don't pay the transaction fee. They don't pay the shipping fee for you as well, right? So, and Lazada and Shopee take a cut. They take maybe 15 to, I think 10 to 15% commission from your transaction fee. If you're selling on Lazada, right? So yeah, so this is how you estimate your TAM, right? So I want you to use this template. So it's given to you. This is the template that you should use. A very simple template. It's a bit different from your workbook, yeah. So I don't like the worksheet in the DE workbook because it's quite complicated, I would say. Because you really have to sort of like do a bottom up or top down. But I think this worksheet very serve very well. I think it's very simple to use. All you need is just to follow the templates here, right? The two examples that I gave here, and then apply it in your own context, right? In your Beachhead market, right? So my TAM for my Beachhead market is, I probably have 1 million users, and my sales volume will be 2 ringgit per month. And then, I just calculate the total numbers, and then my monthly revenue, my annual revenue times 12. And then after that, I take 20% commission, and that's basically the profit that I earn. So it's kind of very simple, right? So you just have to do some study into your Beachhead market, right? What will be the total number of users in your Beachhead market? It don't have to be millions of people, but you can also start small, like 500,000 people. Or if I want to sell products in Ipoh, right? So I want to sell the products for all the adults in Ipoh. For example, vaccines, vaccines, yeah. You know that some of us are actually going to private clinic to take vaccines, right? So that costs about 350 for 2 doses. You have to buy 2 doses, cannot be 1 dose. So 350 ringgit for 2 doses, and estimated market size for Ipoh, maybe 20,000 people in Ipoh would be willing to pay 350 ringgit for 2 doses of Sinovac vaccine. So you just put 20,000 people times 350, maybe times, basically maybe times the number of times that they are taking vaccines, the frequency. That could be your revenue, right? So you're taking the revenue. And then if you're the clinic, you have to buy vaccines, right? At the cost, right? Let's say the vaccine costs about 200 ringgit, but you're charging people 350 ringgit. So your margin is 150 per vaccine, right? So you are earning 150 ringgit for 2 doses of vaccine. So this is basically the profit margin that you make for taking vaccines in the private clinic, right? So a lot of private clinics are opening up for people to register, right? So for those of you who couldn't wait, I will rather pay instead of waiting for my Sejahtera to update. For waiting for my turn. I'm still waiting for my turn. Maybe I'm young. In fact, a lot of clinics are doing this sort of business. They know that there is a business, there is a market for this, and they have calculated the market size. It's huge because they are not serving like 1 to 10 customers per day. They could be serving maybe 50 to 100 customers per day, right? And if you calculate 100 customer times 150 ringgit margin, that's like, wow, in a day I can make 15,000 ringgit in a day, right? So it's kind of a lot because you only have to serve 100 people who are coming to your clinics to take vaccines times 150 ringgit. That comes to about 15,000, right? So in a day, 1 day you can make 15,000. That's a lot of money for a clinic, right? So it's better than open your clinic up for vaccination center as a vaccination center, rather than rather than just treating patients, right, with ordinary illness. So that's why a lot of clinics are going into this business, because they know that the TAM for that market segment is very, very lucrative. Okay, so I didn't spend 15 minutes actually, maybe less than 15 minutes, but that's the end of my slide. And we have some time for Q&A, right? But coming back to your Google Classroom, what you need to do for this week is obviously focusing on teamwork 4 and 5. It's already posted on your Google Classroom. You do this as a teamwork. And what you need to do is basically open up this worksheet here. Okay, I've posted this worksheet. And then you just have to use a worksheet to estimate your TAM, right? To estimate your TAM, right? So just use the worksheet. I think the file is wrong. I will just re-upload the file so that you get the right TAM worksheet, right? So this is the one. And basically, this is the last slide of this topic 2 is the worksheet that you need to fill out as a team and then submit it, so that we'll review that in the next session. So that comes to the end for team 1. Who is your customer? Based on the DE24 steps, the blue boxes, the first 5 steps, we have covered it in the first 3 weeks. And I hope you can spend some time to work with your team, brainstorm, discuss with your team about coming up with the end user profile, identify the beachhead market, and then come up with the persona and estimate the total addressable market for your beachhead market. All right. So that's about it for today. Thank you so much. And if you have questions, you can stay back for Q&A, right? Okay, we have question from, okay, we'll address this one by one, yeah? From Jia Pei. How many persona for teamwork 4? As I said, it's up to you, but I cannot say that you need to understand your market segment. Whether you're operating a platform like Lazada, if you are doing something like Lazada, there are buyer and sellers, you need 2 persona. Meaning that you need 2 persona, then you have to work out 2 TAMs, right? 2 total addressable market. Just like Simplify, right? Simplify, we have 2 persona, the traveler and the seller, right? The taxi driver or the Grab drivers. So we've shown you 2 persona. And for Simplify, we also work out 2 TAMs, right? 2 total addressable market. Okay, so that's all from Jape. The only questions that I got from Jape. Okay, from Mingyan, right? You can always change. You can always change your topic. No worries. This is not graded. We are just guiding you, just like design thinking, we're guiding you step by step. You can always change your topic. You can always change your market segment. If you see that, oh, in step 1 or 2, I did something wrong, I want to revisit my idea, go ahead to do it. Okay, no worries, you have time, right? 14 weeks, you definitely have time, trust me. All right, so that's all, and thank you so much. I'll upload this video to YouTube so that you can replay it in your Google Classroom, and I wish you all the best. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay inspired. All right, don't just stay safe, but stay inspired as well. Right? Cheers.